how you are thinking about the next 6 months?
I mean, look, I think what's really important is that we recognize that obviously we lost the election. We didn't win the House. We obviously lost the presidency. We lost the Senate. And so we have to accept that. We have to listen to people. I don't think this is the moment where we all automatically know what to do in every situation. But what's really important, I think, is that we also, Donald Trump won the presidency with 49% of the vote, 48% of the vote. We lost with 47% of the vote. This is not somehow some sort of mandate where he absolutely destroyed our outcome in the presidency. It's still a closely divided country. Now, they won. We should recognize that. But we also have to ensure that we double down on what we believe in. This is not also a moment to retreat on basic human values and decency. It's not a moment to retreat on focusing on civil rights, on standing up to bullies, and taking on the Republicans and Donald Trump's absolute worst policies. And so from an oversight perspective, we need to keep them accountable for all of the harm they're going to try to cause our democracy and our institutions.
So you have Tom Homan, who's going to be heading up the deportation of people, saying, I've seen some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in their way. Let's kind of listen to what he has to say about these Democratic governors.
Some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in the way. They're going to make it hard for us. Well, a suggestion: if you're not going to help us, get the hell out of the way, because we're going to do it. So if we can't get assistance from New York City, and we may have to double the number of agents we send in New York City, because we're going to do the job. We're going to do the job without you or with you.
So the sovereignty of states is not a bar. The independence of governors to protect their citizens or those persons within their charge is irrelevant. We're going to do it regardless.
We're not going to get the hell out of the way. I mean, I think that it's really important that governors, including my own governor, Gavin Newsom in California, fight hard against folks that are trying to destroy our democracy, destroy our government, and harm people that are in our states and across the country. And so it's really important that governors stand up, that state legislatures stand up, and that Congress fights back. I know that a lot of us feel dejected. I know that a lot of folks are feeling down about the work that didn't get us the presidency and what we wanted to accomplish and stop Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that we can just retreat. I think this is really important for us to lean in. Governors are going to lead the way, and Congress is going to as well.
I have appreciated what I have heard from House Democrats specifically, because y'all just seem to be very realistic. It's some people in the Senate, like Senator Fetterman, that I don't think have been realistic. You know me, I'm going to name names. I don't think he's been realistic. He's saying, oh, don't clutch your pearls, don't do this, don't do that, just let Trump be, oh, he's trolling. No, baby, this is real. Okay, this is real. So I think House Democrats have been realistic for the most part, but then you had Rep. Wiley Nickel propose Democrats form a shadow cabinet, and I just think there have been some wild, crazy conspiracy theories out there. Shadow cabinet, the resistance, do this, do that. I do think that the American people do want, you want a government that works for you. Democrats cannot just be against, but it's really hard to, the legislative realities are that y'all aren't in charge at this point now. Maybe one of the House races goes a different way and Democrats end up in charge of the House. But it looks as though that not in charge of anything, in the minority in all of it. And so what really can you all do? Because midterms are around the corner.
Yeah, what I would say is first look at what we did and stopped these last 2 years not being in the majority. So we've been in the minority, and yet we stopped a lot of horrific things from happening in the House and pushed back on real hard. We've got to double down and do that. I believe that Hakeem Jeffries is the right person to lead this caucus and to fight like hell against every single bad policy the Republicans put out there. We got to bring the facts, we got to bring the evidence, and we got to call out even things that are happening in the Senate. These nominations are insane and crazy. You're going to nominate RFK Jr., a vaccine denier who doesn't believe in vaccines, who's caused measles outbreaks in other parts of the country, who thinks that fluoride in water is making people gay and trans. This is insane. And so the American public needs to be reminded every single day of what they voted for and how we can actually change and make the country better. So we've got to push really hard. And I've been encouraging my Democratic colleagues to not retreat at this moment. I know it's hard. We need to kind of pick up our boots here, but we've got to fight back every single day and not allow them to get away with damaging our institutions permanently.
So you talk about the leadership of Hakeem, and I think he will be an important anchor for what the Democrats do next. But more importantly, how they organize around principles as the loyal opposition in the House. You, sir, have sent around a Dear Colleague letter noting that you, too, would like to put in place a bid for leadership. We are the party of working families, but all too often we're not connecting with these communities. We can't just rely on the traditional media to carry our message. We must engage in every medium and mass media market to adapt to how people consume information today. We must ensure we are reaching people where they are, pushing back on misinformation and spreading the truth. Those aspects of leadership are going to be necessary as you look for a bid as a caucus leader.
No, that's right. I mean, fortunately, I'm running for caucus leadership rep. I've been freshman class president. This is my first term. I'm unopposed right now, which is really great. But what I've been telling folks,
But he's running like he's behind. That's what you're supposed to do.
He's running like, okay, they got 10 people coming after me.
No, people have been very supportive. Look, I think one of the things that I've told the caucus is that absolutely it's a message. Message is important. What we're saying, what our values are, is important. But where we message and the mediums is as important. We are not in every space. We're not on every podcast. We need to go in all the places that are uncomfortable, particularly places where young men are getting their information now. I talked to a group of 30 undecided young men in Nevada a month before the election. I asked them where they get their information from. It's none of the places that they're traditional, not newspapers, not cable TV, not broadcast TV. So we have to go into these spaces and communicate aggressively. And I think that's where Democrats can do a better job. I think Hakeem Jeffries understands this. I think the caucus understands this, and that's one of the reasons why I want to be involved in helping us, lead in that direction.
So there's the leadership that's coming from there, Congressman. There's also some reporting in Punchbowl about what is happening over at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The caucus seeking new messaging strategy after Trump gains. Sources close to CHC have also complained that Democrats have treated Hispanics as too much of a monolith. Trump, who has made significant gains among Cuban Americans in recent years, also made inroads in Puerto Rican heavy areas in Pennsylvania and with Mexican Americans in South Texas. I got to be honest, Congressman, I'm going to assume you agree. I think the problem is bigger than being treated as a monolith. I think the problem is not being treated as a group that has agency and power and is important and should be at the center of campaign strategy, not at the margins.
I could not agree more. And I think that we just can't talk to Latino communities when elections roll around. I think that we're a growing bloc in this country. Obviously, I'm an immigrant myself. I understand the immigrant experience. And when I talk to folks, the amount of disinformation that Latinos are getting from all sorts of other sources, because we are not in those spaces and not communicating, is very concerning. Yes, Donald Trump improved with Latinos, especially Latino men. It's very disappointing. But if you look at all the states, Latinos in the swing states actually voted marginally better for Vice President Harris. If you compare those to other places like New York and California, where we weren't campaigning to Latinos. So when we're communicating to Latinos, we marginally are actually doing better than in other places where we're not communicating to the Latino community during these big national elections. And so we've got to campaign everywhere, and we've got to campaign in the spaces where Latinos are getting their information. And right now, young men, Latino men, they're not reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, or watching MSNBC or other networks.
They're watching the clips, though.
They're watching the clips.
That's why we post.
That's right.